Lieutenant Colonel Stu Scheller. I am still, as of making this message, a United States Marine infantry officer. I've been advised through the legal channels that continued challenges to the military and political leadership could result in pretrial confinement and or escalation of my legal situation, which I'll get into momentarily. But I thought that this message, being the culmination of everything I've put together up to this point, was important enough that I wanted to put it out, and I hope that if you support me, you'll share this message because it's that important. To recap my position in the fallout of Afghanistan, I demanded accountability of my senior leaders. And I stated then that I understood that I might lose my battalion commander seat, my retirement, and my family stability. As it has played out, I have in fact lost all three of those things. Would I do it again? I don't know. But I can't explain to you why I made that decision at that moment. Looking at the organizations that are so dear to me, the military establishment and the political establishment of the American government, I was seeing key leaders that weren't being held accountable and were abusing their positions of power at the expense of the everyday American. And everything that I fought for is counter to that. The future that my sons are going to grow up in is contingent upon the organization being able to evolve, which only happens through accountability. Update on my legal situations. The Marine Corps has offered me a very fair deal. Instead of court-martial, they've offered me non-judicial punishment for violation of 2 articles, as long as I'm willing to resign my commission, give up my retirement, and accept a general discharge under honorable conditions, which is pretty fair. But the deal hasn't been signed. I haven't agreed to it, neither have they, and I acknowledge that making this video might destroy that deal. And if the Marine Corps, after this video, decides they want to go in a different direction, I'm prepared to go in that direction and see where it goes. Believe it or not, I don't want to start controversy. I didn't make it 17 years in the Marine Corps and as a battalion commander by saying whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted. But as I sat here and looked at the fundamental changes that needed to take place in our key organizations, I just didn't see anyone else speaking up. To all the retired generals that wrote a very strongly worded letter to the current military establishment asking for resignations, I asked that those general officers show themselves, be prepared to give up their retirement and fight with me. If not, I do think that there are some inspirational voices still left in the political establishment. Reference Congressman Mast, Congressman Crenshaw's testimony against Secretary of State Blinken. I was inspired by some of those lines of questioning. However, I don't think that their voices are enough to spark the change that's required within the military establishment. Hence the reason I'm wearing this uniform now and making this video, because I think there's a fundamental change that needs to take place, and somehow we're missing it. The reason I can't let it go, and the reason I am not just taking the offer and quietly exiting out the Marine Corps, is because I feel like there are general officers in our institution that aren't being held accountable. For example, Secretary of State Blinken just testified in Congress and got beat up, justifiably, but why General McKenzie, who was the CENTCOM commander from Trump to Biden, didn't have to answer those same tough questions. Afghanistan has been a DoD run and led mission for the last 20 years. Why the Department of State is taking the face shots to the fall is beyond me. I think it may have to do with the post-Vietnam generation that feels the need to show respect to service members to the expense of not offering criticism that I think our General Officer Corps rightfully needs. I think history has demonstrated that general officers don't always have the right answer. Before I get into my way forward, there's one other comment I want to make, and that's to General Berger, the Commandant of the Marine Corps. General Berger, sir, your pivot and transition to the next fight, I think, is admirable, and I think it's for all the right reasons. But I offer to you, if you can't hold senior leaders accountable, then it's all for nothing. You had a predecessor that talked about an awakening. He talked about the role of the Commandant was to protect the very soul of the Marine Corps. But he focused on the NCOs that, in my opinion, have fought very bravely and valiantly for the last 20 years. I do believe there's an awakening that needs to take place, but it's not at the NCO level. It's at the general officer level, the people that are not being held accountable, the people that are leading this organization. And I ask that you use your leadership to use some introspection and look at the problems that are occurring. I'd also like to address General McKenzie. Sir, you made comments that are public record on August 31st that stated You made bad assumptions, that you left hundreds of Americans in Afghanistan, and then you itemized pieces of equipment that total hundreds of millions of dollars. I know you are a great American. I know you didn't intend to fail. I know you have served very honorably and are probably a great leader. But that doesn't absolve you from the accountability of your bad assumptions. I am announcing, I've read the entire UCMJ in the last 2 weeks of my purgatory and all the punitive articles, and it turns out that all military officers are subject to the UCMJ. It's because it appears to me that no general officers are willing to hold each other accountable. I am submitting charges against General McKenzie for his bad assumptions. Not because I'm vindictive, but because the senior leaders need to be held accountable to the same standard as us. I will drop the charge sheet so you can see my legal argument on social media. I will route it through my chain of command. I will also route it directly to the former Raytheon Board Director, Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin. And then concurrently, I will file an IG complaint, and then we'll just see where that goes. Additionally, I'm starting a foundation to raise money through the Pipe Hitter Foundation. We'll drop the link. It'll be live on Monday, where people can donate to my family that's moving on to the next chapter, and also to raise legal fees for the legal argument I'm making against the CENTCOM commander. I love America. I love the Constitution. I love Americans. But we can't all be wrong. You only have the power because we allow it. My name is Lieutenant Colonel Stuart Scheller, and I was the only officer in the entire American coalition fired in the debacle of the Afghanistan fallout. I acknowledge that I should have been fired. However, the hypocrisy of the general officers who are not being held to the same standard is a microcosm for the entire problem that is going to bring down the great institutions of this republic that we love. I implore you, please use some introspection to fix the problem.